Now take a look at this crash. That's reality. This isn't Hollywood. That's a crash that happened just outside of Detroit, Michigan. There were 144 vehicles involved. 14 people died. 7 died at the scene, 7 died after the fact. I can't even tell you how many people were injured in that crash. It was related to fog. It was a big fog bank at the time, which is all burnt off. And I want to point out how many commercial vehicles are in there. They're not all commercial vehicles, but there's quite a few of them. And what happened was lots of vehicles saw this fog bank, realized the danger, pulled over to the shoulder of the road, and were literally standing out on the highway waving at people to try and get them to stop. And people were driving in there at 65 and 70 miles an hour and crashing. Crash after crash after crash after crash. So many crashes that you see this vehicle right here, that's actually a tractor with an implement behind it. And a 53-year-old gentleman and a 17-year-old son were working on this farm over here somewhere. When they heard the commotion, you can see the wheel tracks, they drove their tractor over there and parked. The 17-year-old kid was quoted by the media, or had said to the media, he said it was like watching a scene from the Zombies movie. He said what he saw was people staggering out of the fog, all busted up, bleeding, some partially burnt. They were staggering out of that fog, trying to get away from the carnage. That's what he saw. His 53-year-old father was quoted in the Toronto paper the next day, and the quote was, "The horror began after the screaming stopped." Him and his 17-year-old son listened to 3 preschool girls burned to death in one of those cars. And I can guarantee you that even though that father and 17-year-old had absolutely nothing to do with that crash, they weren't in it, they weren't involved in it, they didn't contribute to it, they had nothing to do with it other than they were there, will be affected by that crash for the rest of their lives. I'll guarantee you there's some of you in this room that have been affected by an automobile crash, either coming across it, if you've done any amount of driving, long haul hauling, you've come across your fair share of incidents. In fact, some of you might even have come across a crash scene and been the first one there. And I'll guarantee you it affects you. Because if you're a human being, it has to. It's that simple.